Hello, everyone. Thanks for stopping by. My name is Courtney, and I'm the Emmy Lion. Today, I'm going to be discussing whether or not the carnivore way of eating is enough when battling ME/CFS. Also, this is going to be a little bit different from how I typically do things. I've actually prepared some notes, and I'm going to be going off of those today so I can keep this video to the point and keep it a little bit shorter. I know the light is bad and you're probably going to hear my new kitten playing in the background, but we're just going to roll through all of that. So please forgive me as you see me referring to my notes. Hey, buddy. And let's get started. So the question is the carnivore way of eating enough when battling ME/CFS? My answer, no. I know, before you get mad and click off, just hear me out. I'm a huge proponent of the carnivore lifestyle. It has done wonders in my life. It has improved my quality of life in miraculous and unimaginable ways. If you've been following me for a while, you've heard me discuss some of these improvements in previous videos. If you haven't been following me, I'll go through those real quick and then we'll get back on topic. The carnivore way of life has reduced or eliminated my symptoms by about 90%. So basically what I still deal with is fatigue. I still have venous pooling in my feet, and I still have some sleep issues. It has given me some extra freedom by giving me a longer leash. And even though it is still significantly limited in comparison to others, it has greatly improved my energy levels compared to where I was. And this is the only comparison that matters. We want to compare ourselves to where we were versus where we are now. That's the only metric that we need to care about as we're trying to heal. It's given me a calm mind, free of anxiety and chronic depression. My brain fog is basically gone. Unless I've overdone it, it does creep back in. But compared to what it used to be, it's super mild and it doesn't last for long. I no longer live with daily nerve, joint, and muscle pain. I no longer live with crippling GI pain. I no longer live with derealization. I no longer live with frequent ice pick headaches. And I no longer live with constant restless legs. Hey, buddy. The list goes on, but I'll wrap it up right there. So why would I suggest that the carnivore way of life may not be enough? Because until we learn to pace, we're going to stay in a constant push-crash cycle. It's going to wreck our results. It's going to wreak havoc on our progress. Ask me how I know that. That's the story of my life, okay? I have been in a push-crash cycle, like most of you, for years and years and years. When I first started carnivore, I started getting all kinds of extra energy. It felt really good. I felt like I'd been freed from prison. And instead of being wise and pacing myself, it was more or less like winning some cash from the lottery and not having any financial principles in place. So my cat is crazy. Every little bit of extra energy that I got, I blew it. I spent it. It felt so good to have it, when you've gone so long without having it. And so, and that's tricky too, because it's not like I was meaning to be irresponsible with my energy or my health or my body. But it was easy to think that, well, gosh, maybe I'm better now, or thinking that I didn't have to be quite so cautious. And that was a mistake. Learning to pace myself has honestly been the most confusing and difficult thing for me in my journey. It's taking me an embarrassingly long period of time to realize how important it is. So what exactly is pacing? Pacing is learning to live and do your activities within your energy envelope, and which means staying below your anaerobic threshold. Well, what is an anaerobic threshold? To keep it simple, this is when the body starts to metabolize energy without oxygen. This starts to lead to a buildup of lactic acid, and this will start building up faster than the body can process it, leading to metabolic acidosis. Now, people with ME/CFS, we live with this on a regular basis. Our anaerobic thresholds are amazingly low. So we go into anaerobic metabolism like that. So we're always accumulating lactic acid. We even accumulate lactic acid in our brains, which lactic acid should never be in our brains. So this is just something that, this is part of our illness, and I don't have the answers for fixing that just yet. And I hope that that's something that, I'm hoping that as the nervous system heals, as the body heals, as our cells are replaced and replenished, that these things start to take care of themselves. But right now, this is still a problem for me, and I'm just slightly over 7 months in my carnivore journey. Let me give you an example of how ridiculously low our anaerobic thresholds are, and then I'll give you a way to calculate your anaerobic threshold. My husband, who is a regular guy, he's not a pro athlete, he's not a gym rat or anything like that, just a decent guy, or a regular guy in decent shape. For him to reach his anaerobic threshold, he has to ride his mountain bike up the side of a mountain multiple times, okay? Multiple times. For me, I have to stand up. Yeah. And if you're thinking that sounds crazy, it is crazy. And, but that's just the truth of things. So, the most accurate way to know your anaerobic threshold is through something called a CPET test. That's a cardiopulmonary exercise test, which honestly, I don't recommend for people like us. Ironically, it's the way that we get an objective, it's objective proof. It's a way that we can get a diagnosis. There's other ways, thank God, but it is objective proof of the illness. However, it will make us worse. Most of us, it'll make us worse. It'll at least do us harm. And so if you can't do a CPET, and I'm not going to do one, there is a way to sort of roughly calculate what your anaerobic threshold is. And so in order to do that, you would take 220 minus your age, and I'm going to go ahead and round up to 42 because I turned 42 on August the 1st. That's like, what, 3 or 4 days from today. And so 220 minus 42 would equal 178. And then you take 178 and you multiply it by 0.55. And that gives me like 97.8. And I rounded up to 98 beats per minute. So when my heart is beating at 98 beats per minute, I am at my anaerobic threshold. Okay? So when I stand up out of a chair, my heart rate goes usually somewhere between 111 and 115. So just simply standing up out of my chair, I'm already over my anaerobic threshold. And the longer you stay in that state over your anaerobic threshold, the more you're making an energy deficit, the more you're burning energy that you don't have. Another ridiculous example is that yesterday, before getting in the shower and brushing my hair, my heart rate was at 134, just standing up, brushing my hair. So my husband went mountain biking today, and he said, you know, since you've been pacing and really paying attention to your heart rate, he said, I decided to pay attention to mine while I was mountain biking today. And he said, I had just gone about 800 feet up the side of a mountain, and he said, I looked down at my heart rate and it was 114. Yeah. So our bodies, those of us with ME/CFS, they're working so hard to do almost nothing. They're just working so hard all the time, and we don't even really realize it. I had no idea. I knew that, I knew I struggled. I knew that I could feel my heart racing. I knew my blood pressure stayed low. I knew that I ran out of energy really quickly, but it's been incredibly humbling to see how hard my body's working to do the most basic things. I actually, in some ways, feel a little bit vindicated and am finding myself having the ability to have some sympathy for myself. I've been beating myself up for having this illness and feeling like I let people down, feeling like I'm flaky, feeling like I don't get enough done in a day, or that I am not enough and that I'm a burden. So to see this stuff really playing out and seeing how hard my body is working all the time, yeah, it's made me a little more sympathetic. And the strange thing is, even when I sit down in a chair and put my feet up, my heart rate is staying mostly in the 90s. It'll sometimes get down in the lower 80s. So I'm not actually really ever getting into a restful state, even when I think I'm resting. And so I don't think this is unique to me. This is probably a problem for you too. We think, well, I've sat around all day. I've laid around all day. I have deliberately made the decision to rest. Well, maybe we are consciously trying to rest, but maybe our bodies are not picking up on the fact that that's what we're doing when our heart rates are staying so high. I hope that makes sense. So anyway, knowing your anaerobic threshold will help you eventually find your baseline and your energy envelope. Now, they're not the same thing, but they do work together. Each of us will have a unique energy envelope. So if you're someone who has a mild case of ME/CFS, you're probably still able to work, and you're probably still able to have some degree of a social life. If you are a very severe case, someone like Whitney Defoe, who's kind of the face of ME/CFS in some ways and in some circles, it's likely that you can't even brush your teeth without being punished. And then there's, the rest of us that are somewhere in between there. And so no one can figure this out for you. You have to figure out your own energy envelope, and it's going to be completely unique. So to me, finding my baseline and staying within my energy envelope is a concept that's been about as clear as mud. Why? Because our energy envelope is different every day. Maybe you pushed just slightly past your threshold yesterday. That means you borrowed some energy that you didn't have, right? You started going into that energy deficit. So you're going to start out the next day with even less energy than you may have typically had, and even though your energy level is already low. Does that make sense? So that's one example. Another example is, say, maybe yesterday you did everything perfectly, but you didn't sleep well, or you didn't sleep at all. And so your energy level is going to take a beating, and your day is going to be wrecked pretty much. So again, every day is completely different. And, something that makes it more complicated is that for most of us, we're trying to figure all of this stuff out, but we're so sick and we are so brain fogged, that it's just extra confusing. And then the illness, absolutely gaslights you. So it's complicated. Sorry, my kitten is very distracting. Super cute though. For me, carnivore has reduced my symptom load enough that I can now focus on understanding the illness better, and I can focus on pacing. So why is pacing so important? Pacing ourselves properly is the only way we're going to stop crashing. And we have to stop crashing in order to maintain our momentum and to truly heal. I don't think we can truly heal unless we stop crashing. And I've kind of put this to the test. I said earlier, I've been on the carnivore diet now for a little over 7 months, like 2 days past the 7-month mark. And I'll be honest with you, I actually felt my best probably around month number 4. I felt like I had energy to burn, and like I just woke up earlier. I felt good, not just functional. I actually like felt good. And that's just not something that people like us are used to. We may have something that is like a good day for us, but we never really feel good, right? And so it was right about that time that my little soul kitty died, and I did a video on that, and it really crushed me because he was my only companion and comfort, for so many years that I was so alone when my husband was traveling and just so sick, and I took it really, really hard. And for a solid month after he passed away, I would not let myself rest. I would not sit still. Every day, all day, I was up on my feet. I was finding some project to get into. I had to keep my mind and my hands busy. I'm a creative person, and that in a lot of ways was my saving grace, my creative outlets, so I was finding things to paint or things to sew or, whatever. I went outside. I tried planting some flowers, which has been outside of my physical capacity for so many years. I was planting some flowers. I was spending some time outside. I was, walking around in my yard. I was doing all these things that have been impossible prior. And instead of pacing them and doing them moderately, it was just full tilt boogie all day, every day for 30 days, within the capacity that I had. And I burnt it up. Okay, I burnt my energy up, and I put myself down in a pretty deep crash. It didn't last as long as crashes in the past, and it wasn't as severe, but it was a crash, and that was really disappointing because I felt like I'd come so far that maybe that wasn't going to be a thing for me anymore. Unfortunately, I'm not free from that. And the sad thing is that at 7 months, I don't feel as good as I did at 4 months. And that's not to say that I'm not doing well. That's not to say that I'm not progressing, because I am. I think the reduction in symptom load is evidence enough, that my body is healing. But I've had to come to the realization that I still have a long way to go. I can speculate that I have gone from, if we're using Mayo Clinic's diagnostic criteria and their categories of severity, I was a severe case. And I think I've gone from severe to moderate. Well, moderate is not a walk in the park. I still have a really long way to go. And that's fine. I'm tickled to death with my improvements in quality of life, and I'm still very much a believer of the carnivore way of eating. I've just realized that if I don't pace myself and take that very seriously, I'm going to keep going, a step forward and 2 steps back, or maybe 2 steps forward and 1 step back. I'm not exactly sure, but I'm not going to progress as quickly as I could, and I'm going to keep giving myself setbacks. So I think my number one focus right now is going to be pacing. I once heard an MD who is an ME/CFS specialist compare crashing to stubbing one's toe. And basically what was said is that if it happens every once in a while, okay, sucks, but it's not that big a deal. However, if it happens over and over again, you will cause injury and you will do permanent damage. Did you realize that crashing actually causes neurologic changes? Yeah, so we must do our best to stay out of the push-crash cycle and take pacing very, very seriously. Again, I stink at this. I'm wired to push my limits, and realizing this about my personality has been immensely helpful. Now, I was kind of brought up in a bootstrap mentality, and I think for the most part, it's a good mentality to have. I think being a person that wants to push your limits, I think that it's in most ways a positive character trait, but it can become toxic, and it has certainly been toxic in my life at points. Also, though, it's the very trait that keeps me from giving up. It's the trait that keeps me fighting. So I've got to try to temper that trait, use the positive side of that trait that keeps me going, keeps me fighting, but put the brakes on the side of that trait that says, you have to push, you have to get more done today, you're worthless unless you do X, Y, and Z, you're a burden, and so blah, blah, blah. So I'm trying to tweeze that out and quit kicking myself when I'm down. Being your own worst enemy is not helpful in this illness at all. And so I can have some respect for myself and pat myself on the back a little bit for fighting so hard. But I also need to give myself a little bit of a break, and treat myself with a little more respect and dignity, I have a hard time with that. So anyway, okay. This is what I've kind of decided to do, since I'm not great at pacing, and because it's not super clear to me, and it's not easy to measure every day where your energy envelope is. I still don't completely understand my baseline. So what I'm going to do is basically I'm going to do about half of what I feel like I can do. And that on one hand makes me feel like, okay, that's going to set you up to be a little bit lazy. See, that's that toxic trait. It's not, though. I think what it is just slowing things down and proceeding on the cautious side, just being a little bit more conservative with my energy and the activities that I choose to do in a day. So I'm going to make myself rest, whether I want to or not, and I'm going to make myself rest longer than I probably want to. And if I feel like I can do these 4 things today, I'm probably just going to pick 2 and start really prioritizing what I would like to get done, and how much energy those tasks realistically take. So, and this is part of the problem, and this is how the illness gaslights you. You don't always know while you're doing something that you're overdoing it. Sometimes you do, all right? Sometimes you don't. Sometimes you think, yeah, I think I'm up to this task, and you feel fine while you're doing it, only to crash later and realize, actually, I was not up to the task. And that's how the illness gaslights you over and over and over again, and it makes you look ridiculous to your friends and family, because they're like, well, I mean, you seemed fine, yesterday when you were quilting at your sewing machine, or, whatever it is that you were doing. And you're like, well, yeah, I mean, I thought I was, and I felt fine, and today, I'm a wreck. So, it's just super fun dealing with this stuff. All right, let me get back on topic. Where am I at? Yeah, okay, taking more rest periods, and rest is super important. And yeah, I spoke earlier about how, unfortunately, even when we think we're resting, a lot of us are not actually getting into a restful state. So I think for me, I'm going to try to schedule times during the day. I think I'm going to set reminders on my phone where I don't just sit down and put my feet up. I'm going to sit down, put my feet up, close my eyes, put on some like relaxing music with no words, maybe cover my eyes, and do some deep breathing, maybe 5 or 10 minutes of just deep belly breathing. That will slow your heart rate down. It should improve your heart rate variability, and heart rate variability, improving that, improves your nervous system function over time. And my heart rate variability is not good. And I won't get into a whole lot about heart rate variability today, but it's a pretty important aspect of knowing and battling this illness, and that'll be a discussion for another day. But if you aren't familiar with it, I encourage you, when you click off of this video, to Google heart rate variability and try to understand a little bit about that. So yeah, I've covered some of this. Yeah, and I was just speaking about this a minute ago. You know, honestly, I feel a little stalled out at the moment, which has been upsetting and frustrating, you know. But this whole thing, it's a journey, and there's a huge learning curve to it, and I'm still figuring stuff out, and I have to give myself a little bit of grace, because just like you trying to figure your journey out, we're all different. We're all our own experiment, you know? And so, as the old song goes, one day at a time, sweet Jesus, I try to remind myself of that, and kind of sing that a little bit to myself, and that calms me down a little bit, and reminds me to just take a deep breath and realize that this battle with ME/CFS is not a sprint. It is very much a marathon, you know? And if we want to get out of it, we can't just beat it with a hammer, you know? We've got to play chess and not checkers, I think. I think that's the way out of this thing. The diet is hugely important. It's been the biggest leg up that I've ever gotten. Everything that I've tried in dealing with this illness, the carnivore way of eating has given me the biggest leg up. It's given me the most improvements in quality of life. It's reduced my symptoms the most. It's increased my energy the most. So it's immensely important. And do I recommend it for everybody? I can't speak for everybody, you know, but I recommend that you give it a try. And that's not medical advice. This is just me talking about my experience. But you need to give it at least 90 days. You know, you need to do it at least 90 days. And I think much longer than that, but to even really give it a fair shake, you need to do it 90 days. And come on, that's not that long. We can do anything for 90 days. So in order to help me with my pacing, I've downloaded an app called Visible, and it was created with people, or it was created by people that actually have this illness. And it's designed to help you keep track of your progress. I purchased this armband to go with it. It syncs to the app. This continuously monitors your heart rate. And so the app kind of logs your biometrics. And you do morning and evening check-ins. And it alerts me when I'm above my anaerobic threshold. It'll give me an alert, and it'll say you've something along the lines of you've been overexerting for over 2 minutes. You know, seek rest. It's something along those lines, which is really helpful. And I'm surprised how often it keeps going off. You know, if I'm standing in the kitchen leaning against the counter, you know, it'll go off. And my heart rate will be like 117 beats per minute, and I'm not doing anything. I'm just standing there leaning against the counter. And I told you yesterday, you know, brushing my hair, I was at 134 beats per minute. So it's kind of interesting to me that as far as I've come, and as much progress as I've made, for this to still be the case, it makes me wonder, how bad was it before? You know, like, I at least, even if I don't feel super great, I generally feel functional, you know. But I think my husband's about to come in, and my cat's crazy. Anyway, yeah, so it also measures your heart rate variability. the morning and evening check-ins, logging your symptoms. It prompts me to do breathing exercises, which are really helpful, and it'll send you those reminders, because that's not something I'm going to do on my own, but it reminds me to do that. This isn't a promotion. I bought the armband myself. I bought the membership to the app. They don't know I'm doing this, you know, so no one's paying me to promote it. And I've only had it for, I think today's the second or third day. And so I haven't had it that long. So far though, I really like it, and I probably absolutely will recommend it, but I want to spend a little more time with it before I really say too much else about it. But if you're curious about it, look it up. It's called Visible, which I think is a great name since this is considered an invisible illness. I think it's very appropriately named Visible because it makes your illness more visible. And like I said earlier in the video, it does make you feel vindicated. You can physically see how your body is reacting to positional changes, to heat stress, to the shower. It's waterproof. You can wear it in the shower. And it went off constantly while I was in the shower. So my heart is it's just racing the whole time I'm in the shower. And I can't shower fast, you know, because it makes me dizzy, and it's an energy thing. And so I think as far as my body's concerned, I'm working out pretty hard, you know, for like 25 minutes while I'm in the shower, you know, and then there's the heat on top of that. So no wonder I'm wiped out when I get out of the shower. But anyway, search it out, and you can download the app for free. But if you want the membership and stuff like that, you gotta pay for it. So I'm gonna wrap it up. And so while carnivore alone may not be enough for many of us with ME/CFS, it is an extremely powerful catalyst that moves us in the right direction and gives us better health. On its own, it has tremendously improved my quality of life in ways that were previously unimaginable. So while I firmly believe, because of my own experiences, that we must pace, oh my cat, I can't even think straight. While I firmly believe that we must pace in order to get through this illness, that doesn't mean I am, you know, taking anything away from the carnivore way of eating. It's given me so much, and I don't plan on going back. I don't plan on ever doing any other way of eating. I'm likely a carnivore for life. Okay, I'm a convert. It's been that effective and that powerful in my life. So not belittling the carnivore way of eating for 1 second. Anyway, that's about it for today. Meat heals, stay the course. I'm sorry that I still kind of went off on tangents and stayed totally distracted through this whole video. My kitten is he's just like spazzing out, and I don't know how much noise you could hear, but it's been super distracting for me. I hope it wasn't super distracting for you. All right, I hope to talk to you soon. I know it's really long in between my videos. I'm not a professional YouTuber. I'm just a girl trying to fight this illness, trying to live life and catch up on things and find time and energy, and I hope all that lines up with clean hair to do videos. So anyway, that's all for today. So in the meantime, this girl will keep eating and fighting like a lion. Catch you later.